What would you do if you got a letter from someone who's been officially dead for 11 years? Not a prank, not a mistake. An envelope with your name on it, your home address, and inside, crime scene photos from a case you personally closed. That's exactly what happened to Ryan Mitchell. And it didn't stop at one letter. Ryan Mitchell spent 22 years as a detective with the Pittsburgh Police Department. Not the flashy kind you see on TV, no dramatic monologues, no trench coat. By all accounts, Ryan was a methodical, by-the-book investigator. His colleagues described him as the kind of guy who remembered every detail of every case he ever worked. Parking ticket from 2003, he'd tell you the exact street, the exact time, the exact weather that morning. He was good at his job, genuinely good. He retired in the spring of 2019, not because he was forced out, not because of any scandal. He was 54, his knees were giving him trouble, and his daughter had just had her first baby. He wanted to be a grandfather more than he wanted to be a detective. That's a perfectly reasonable decision, a happy ending almost. He bought a small house in Cranberry Township, about 25 miles north of Pittsburgh, fixed up the back porch, started a vegetable garden, learned to make his own bread, which, according to his daughter, was genuinely terrible for the first 8 months, and then somehow became incredible. Ryan Mitchell, in other words, was a normal retired guy living a normal retired life until the first envelope arrived. It was a Tuesday in October 2021. Ryan told this story himself, first to his daughter, then eventually to a journalist named Carol Weiss, who spent 3 months trying to verify every detail. Most of them checked out. The envelope was sitting in his mailbox when he went out to get the morning paper. Just a regular white business envelope, the kind you can buy in a 100-count pack at any drugstore. His name and address were handwritten in blue ink. No return address, Pittsburgh postmark. He almost didn't open it right away. He set it on the kitchen counter, made his coffee, sat down. Then something about it bothered him. He couldn't say what exactly, and he picked it up. Inside was a single photograph, black and white, printed on standard copy paper. It showed the interior of a warehouse, concrete floors, exposed beams, a broken window in the upper left corner, letting in a diagonal strip of light, and in the center of the frame, barely visible in the shadows, what appeared to be a body bag. Ryan stared at it for a long time. Then he went to his home office, opened a filing cabinet in the corner, and pulled out a folder he hadn't touched in over a decade. The photograph matched, not similar, not close, matched. Same warehouse, same broken window, same angle of light. It was either taken the same day as the original crime scene photos, or it was a near-perfect reproduction. The case was called the Hargrove file, and it had been closed officially, permanently closed, in 2012. Let me give you some background, because this is where it gets complicated. In 2009, a man named Douglas Hargrove disappeared from his home in Lawrenceville, a neighborhood on Pittsburgh's east side. He was 41 years old, worked in insurance, lived alone, had a sister in Ohio, and no other close family. No signs of struggle at his house, no activity on his credit cards after the disappearance, no body ever found. Ryan Mitchell was the lead detective on the case. For 2 years, he worked it, interviewed neighbors, co-workers, anyone who'd had contact with Hargrove in the weeks before he vanished. He pulled phone records, bank records, security footage from every camera within a half-mile radius of Hargrove's house. What he found was this: Douglas Hargrove had been quietly feeding information to a state-level investigation into a waste management company with rumored ties to organized crime. Not a formal informant, more like a concerned citizen who'd noticed some irregularities in the paperwork that crossed his desk and made a few phone calls to the wrong people, then a few to the right ones. Whether that got him killed or whether he got spooked and ran, Ryan could never definitively determine. The warehouse in the photograph was a location Ryan had investigated, one of several properties connected to the waste management company. He'd been through it twice, found nothing, no body, no blood, no evidence of any crime. In 2012, the case was officially reclassified as a cold case and effectively shelved. Douglas Hargrove remained listed as a missing person, presumed dead, but officially just gone. Ryan Mitchell always felt uneasy about that closure. He said so years later. He felt like he'd missed something, but he couldn't find what it was. And eventually, the case went into the filing cabinet. 9 years later, it came back to his mailbox. Ryan's first instinct was to call his old department. He called a former colleague, a sergeant named Diane, and told her what he'd received. She told him she'd look into it, file a report, see if anyone had pulled the Hargrove records recently. 3 days later, she called back. Nobody had touched the file, no open investigations related to it, no explanation for the photograph. Ryan tried to tell himself it was some kind of prank, maybe someone from his old caseload with a grudge. It happened sometimes, people who blamed the detective when cases didn't resolve the way they wanted. He changed the subject, got back to his garden, his bread. 11 days after the first envelope, the second one arrived. Same white envelope, same blue handwriting, same Pittsburgh postmark. But this time, inside was a torn piece of notebook paper with a handwritten note. Ryan shared the exact wording with Carol Weiss, who included it in her article. It read, "You were right about the warehouse. You looked in the wrong room. D.H. Douglas Hargrove." Ryan sat with that piece of paper for what he described as a very long time. He's not a superstitious man. He spent 2 decades dealing in evidence and logic and cause and effect. He does not believe in ghosts. He said that explicitly, more than once. But Douglas Hargrove had been missing for 12 years. His case was closed, and someone using his initials was telling a retired detective that he'd made a mistake. Ryan drove to the warehouse. He shouldn't have gone alone. 22 years of police training, and he drove out to an abandoned building at 7 in the evening in October without telling anyone where he was going. The warehouse was in an industrial area near the river, the kind of place that's been slowly emptying out for 30 years as businesses moved or went under. A few of the neighboring buildings were occupied, a small auto body shop, a food distribution company, but the warehouse itself had been sitting vacant since around 2011, when the waste management company quietly dissolved. Ryan had a flashlight and, because he wasn't completely without sense, the licensed firearm he'd kept since retirement. The front entrance was padlocked. He walked the perimeter, found a side door that had been forced at some point. The lock was broken, the door just resting in its frame. He went in. He'd been in the building before. He knew the layout. Large open floor, loading dock in the back, a staircase to a second level that ran along the east wall. A small network of rooms along the north side, old offices, a break room, what had been some kind of foreman's area. You looked in the wrong room. He'd searched the main floor both times. He'd gone up the staircase once, but the second level was mostly open, just a catwalk, really. He hadn't gone thoroughly through the north side rooms. He went through them now. The first 2 were empty, just old furniture, dust, nothing significant. The third room was locked, which surprised him because he didn't remember a locked room during either of his original searches. New padlock, too, from the look of it. Relatively clean hardware against the weathered wood of the door. Ryan used a pry bar from his car again, not completely unprepared, and opened it. Inside was a cot, a battery-powered lantern, stacks of canned food, gallons of water in jugs, a portable camp stove. Someone had been living there. Not recently, the food cans were old, the dust had settled on everything evenly. But someone had made this room a long-term shelter. On the cover of the notebook, written in blue ink, was a name: Douglas Hargrove. Ryan didn't touch anything else. That much of his training held. He called Diane, told her where he was, told her to come out. While he waited, he read the notebook from the doorway, using his flashlight, without going inside. What followed was, according to Diane, one of the most unusual case resolutions she'd ever seen in her career. And she'd seen a lot. Douglas Hargrove had not been murdered. Douglas Hargrove had run. He'd come to believe correctly, as it turned out, that his quiet attempts to report financial irregularities had been noticed, not by law enforcement, by the people the irregularities pointed to. He started finding signs that his home was being watched, a car parked in different spots on his street, different vehicles, but always occupied, a phone call with no one on the line. Small things. The kind of things that could be paranoia, but could also be a warning. He made a decision. He staged his own disappearance. He'd been inside this warehouse, hiding, when Ryan and his team searched it in the main room, behind the loading dock, in a space between two large metal shelving units. Then he waited until the searches stopped, moved into the back room, and continued to watch what happened from the inside. He had a car hidden 2 miles away. He made careful supply runs at odd hours. He stayed for almost 8 months. Then he drove west, started over somewhere else, under a different name. The notebook described this, the planning, the execution, the psychological toll of living inside a building while investigators walked through it, looking for evidence of your death. He watched the organized crime investigation play out from a distance, followed it in the news. The waste management company's principals were eventually charged not for anything related to Hargrove, but for tax fraud and illegal dumping. They went to prison. The threat, as Hargrove had assessed it, was neutralized. So why contact Ryan Mitchell in 2021? The final pages of the notebook, the most recent entries, written in the same blue ink, but with a hand that seemed slightly less steady, as if written by someone older, addressed this directly. Hargrove wrote that he'd built a modest life under his new identity, worked a trade kept to himself. He wrote that he'd spent years carrying guilt about the chaos his disappearance had caused, not just the investigation, but his sister, who had never fully recovered from the uncertainty of not knowing what happened to him. He'd maintained one secret line of contact with her, irregular and indirect, just enough so she knew he was alive, but she couldn't tell anyone. He also wrote that his health had declined. He'd been diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer in early 2021. He wasn't going to recover. He wanted to close the loop. He didn't want to come forward himself. He still had the new identity, still had what remained of his life, and he had no interest in the legal and practical chaos of resurface after 13 years. But he wanted Ryan Mitchell to know. He'd followed the case coverage at the time, knew Ryan had worked it hard, and felt that a detective who'd put in that kind of work deserved to understand what had actually happened. The photograph in the first envelope was taken from his own archives, his documentation of the warehouse during the months he'd lived there. He'd kept a full photographic record, almost compulsively. The note in the second envelope was an invitation. He trusted that Ryan would handle the truth carefully, and he asked for one thing, that the information about his new identity be kept out of any official report, that his sister be told privately, through whatever means Ryan could manage, that he hadn't been killed. He was dying. He didn't want her to still be grieving a murder victim when she didn't have to be. Ryan Mitchell turned over the notebook and everything else in that room to Diane and the department. He gave a full account of the envelopes, the photographs, the note. A new investigation opened briefly, and then quietly concluded that Douglas Hargrove had faked his disappearance under circumstances that suggested genuine fear for his personal safety, and that no criminal charges would be relevant or practical given the circumstances. Ryan did manage to contact Hargrove's sister. Carol Weiss's article doesn't go into specifics about how, and Ryan didn't elaborate when asked. He just said she knows her brother wasn't murdered. He said she cried for about an hour. Then she said thank you. Douglas Hargrove died in March of 2022, under a name that isn't in any public record, in a place Ryan Mitchell has never disclosed. And the Hargrove file, after nearly 15 years, was officially closed for the second time. This time, Ryan said, it felt like it actually was. He still makes bread on Sunday mornings. He says it's really good now. His daughter agrees. If this kind of story is what you're here for, hit subscribe. There are a lot more where this came from. And if this one got under your skin the way it got under mine, leave a comment. I read every one of them. I'll see you in the next one.